Hey guys, this is Jeff. Winding down the evening, and I wanted to do another VR for, not four, but two Simon from Hermits Cave. 3 ego states spread. Really seems so interesting whenever he did it. Obviously, I will link his video below, but in the nutshell, in a very, very brief nutshell, and even his more detailed version of it, he even said that is just scratching the surface of what this, what this whole thing's really getting at. So let me just give my nutshell of the nutshell, and that is about these 3 very different and distinct ego states that we find ourselves in with various circumstances or situations. The parent ego state, which can pretty much be identified as like the role maker or the overprotector. There are times, there are situations, there are events and elements that put us in the adult ego state. And that's very much like, very opinion-based, problem solver type of thing, reality-based, any sort of thing that will sort of pull you out of your spiritual center to kind of get you into be like, oh, I have to be this right now. I have to be this adult ego state, like this parent ego state. And then over here we have this child ego state. And those can be, very easily identified as being very dependent, very emotional, very irrational. And we all have these in combination of one or another, but there are certain situations that pull us into one of these ego states over the other more dominantly. So we're going to find out what that is. Simon had suggested that we use 2 different decks, which I think is a really great idea. The first deck to be laid on the top, which is going to be for each of these ego states, which is going to be what puts me in that state, or how it is that I find myself in this ego state of being the parent, where it's about making the roles and being the protector and all of these things. So I'm going to use my golden thread deck for that. And I just say we just kind of get started. We just kind of see what's going on. We got the candle lights going, so this deck should really shine and shimmer. This should be a lot of fun right here. So, how about we just use that one that flew right out of there? How about we just do that? Let's do that. Okay, so this is what puts me in the ego state of sort of being the parent, all right? And then there's the Hierophant. I'm sorry, that's the High Priestess reversed. Let's get that up close. That's the High Priestess reversed. There we go. The High Priestess, it's such a beautiful card. It's a beautiful card when it comes in one way or the other. Whenever I see it come in reversed, it always reminds me of just sort of putting the focus really on what is around you, not really paying attention to what's kind of behind the veil in this particular kind of reading. And so what puts me in that ego state is whenever I kind of get, whenever I lose touch, that really there's, a spiritual side, that my higher self, that I have a spiritual self that is beyond the boundaries of the kind of role or situation where I find myself in, that says you really got to take charge of this particular situation. You really need to step up and all of a sudden make rules and make boundaries, rather than trusting that there's a natural process at place and you don't have to put, what am I trying to say? You don't have to put so much emphasis on the doing of it. You can just be more in the being state in that situation. So I guess in short, what I'm trying to say is that whenever I get into a situation where I feel like I have to do and be very active and begin to make rules, then and not really trust that what is behind the High Priestess's veil is really what's important, just what's looking out, where she's looking out in this 3rd dimensional world. That's where I sort of get into this adult, okay? When I lose track, really what is behind the veil, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When I lose track that I'm a spiritual being in this world, but I'm supposed to have what the right side up High Priestess is fully connected to the spiritual self. That to me makes sense, makes total sense. We're going to use the Pagan Otherworlds deck. You guys know that this is my most favorite right now. About what can I do to recognize and overcome this particular state of kind of forgetting that I am a spiritual being, that I am, here, with the intention of the High Priestess to be able to access, intuition to access all those things that you can't really see, but you have to be still and feel for. So let's find out what that's going to be all about right there. There we go. What's going to help? Okay. The reversed 6 of coins. Let's take a look at that. That's really interesting for me. I'll tell you why that's really interesting for me. It came in reversed. I mean, right side up means everyone's kind of getting a fair shake. Everyone's getting enough. You can kind of question, can I give more? What can I do to recognize and overcome is the idea that I can make more of the situation whenever I realize that I'm just pushing up against a bunch of walls here. Whenever I'm just trying to move the third dimensional world by doing rather than just being. Okay, that's what this reversed 6 means to me. It's not about just being fair with the give and take. It's really putting the stronger emphasis on that's how I can overcome this state, is really just say, what the hell are you looking at? Why are you feeling like you have to control the situation like a parent? Why do you have to feel like you have to make rules to be able to order and structure this third dimensional world and earth and world around you, whenever you can literally turn things back, turn around, look at the world truly as it is, as a manifestation of that which is spirit. All right? So whenever I get the feeling like this parent archetype, I'd be like, hold on a second. This is not the why we're intended to be here. Take a look around and look at the world as really it would be most beneficial. Literally turn the world around and look at it like this high priestess would, putting all the emphasis on what's behind that veil. And let's get into the adult. The adult characteristics are all about like opinion-based, problem-solver, reality-based. It's all of those things that your ego falls into when you can imagine sort of the negative aspects of being like this adult. You know what I mean? Like that which is seen to be as mature. And as I certainly can attest to, that is rarely the most beneficial case and way to go about your life. All right, here we go. So what puts me in that ego state where I'm like, hey man, the reality-basedness of it is most important than anything in the world. Here we go. It's going to be right here. That's the 8 of Pentacles reversed. Again with this reversed, okay, because straight side up, I mean, that wonderful 8 of Pentacles is just about doing it. It's just about doing life, doing work, making the business, kind of just sort of waking up and kind of doing whatever you're doing. This is about, when it comes in reversed, about feeling behind, about feeling resentful. So what puts me in this ego state of like, I need to just, solve this problem that is my life not working, is whenever I get this idea that life isn't working. By this coming in reversed. I can easily imagine how can I recognize that I'm there is well, we're going to find out what specific card. Honestly, look at that golden thread. That's just gorgeous, but I'm not going to turn this into a beautiful card spread thing. So how am I going to recognize, and what can I do to recognize to overcome that state of this kind of life not being really fair, so I have to somehow solve some sort of problem out there? Let's see what the Pig in Other Worlds has to say about that. I'm going to really encourage you to watch Simon's video. He does such a great job. Goes a lot more in depth at what these ego states, positions represent. He goes into this whole thing called I'm Okay, You Okay, which is just gorgeous and beautiful. If you've never read that book, it's wonderful. All right, here we go. What am I going to do to overcome that state of unfairness? Where I get into this adult. Here we go with another reversal. This is that 4. This is that finding aspect of why this life seems to be sort of stuck and unfair. That's what it is. It's taking pause. It's finding that missing cup. It's finding that different perspective. And when I find myself, I can tell you this for sure myself, when I find myself going a full day, 2 days, dare I say 3 days, and I'd like to even say that it's more likely after a few hours where I'm realizing, why am I not sort of floating on air? Why can't I get myself up? I realize obviously that I'm missing something. This isn't the finding of it, the idea that it's not supposed to be like that. This is paying attention to your emotions, about realizing that life is supposed to be this wonderful straight up. And whenever it comes reversed, then you got to say there's something else that I'm missing. I got to look for this other aspect, because life is supposed to be just, it's supposed to be this raised to the higher level, doing your life, but doing it with purpose, having mastery in, creating these, these different aspects of the beingness in your life. So that's what's going to put me in this adult state where I got to say, hey man, I got to solve this problem of the life sort of being like seeming unfair because I'm not feeling good for a certain amount of time. So how do I do to get myself out of it? Is to begin to look for that different perspective. Begin to look for it. And in fact, this card coming in reversed means finding that different perspective. This says it's out there. You can find it. This means how can I find it? Yeah, by finding it. How can you find a different perspective? By finding it. I love that that Four of Cups came in reversed right there. That literally is exactly right for me. Then we get into this child ego state. What's going to put me, how do I find myself in this ego state where I'm kind of like, oh God, I need help. Someone needs to save me. I'll get very emotional. I'm a very emotional type of person anyway. I would not say that I'm irrational, but sometimes I do get into this, oh my gosh, I gotta reach out for, I need some sort of assistance in this. So let's pull out these golden threads and find out what puts me in this ego state of child. I love my other worlds, but I don't know, man. These cards right here, they really, really shape up beautifully. All right, here we go. Oh, here's the Five of Swords. I would say that's quite appropriate. And here, make sure you can see that. That's the Five of Swords. That needs absolutely no introduction for what's going to put me into life is so unfair. If I'm not mistaken, no, Simon had the Three of Swords here. Okay, my mistake. That's a whole different story, but somewhat related because it's this sword thing and it's the three. This is the next odd numbered sword, so it's going to tell you this is about sort of like a life difficulty. Obviously, it's a 5. It's a life difficulty. So whenever I find myself being not victimized per se, but perhaps victimized, but kind of getting the short end of an expectation that my ego wants. How about that? Getting the short end of what my ego wants and expects and hopes for is if I don't get it, if I'm one of those characters that gets turned away in that RWS system, one of those two characters that's kind of gets shamed away, it's literally the card of shame, I turn into the child. I pull into that ego state where I don't get my way. What a magnificent card to get laid out there. Now, what can I do to recognize and to overcome that state of, life is just so unfair and I got totally wronged by that? Well, we're going to find out what the pagan otherworlds have to say about that. This is a pretty cool spread, Simon. I wasn't up for it last night, I'll be honest with you. I needed to do something a lot more fun, a lot more upbeat. But tonight, it's just about the night I find out how can I get out when I find myself thinking, hey man, I got the shit end of the stick on this, man. Let's find out what's going on. I don't know why I cut the cards like this. I'd like to do it here, but I want you guys to see that I'm really pulling the cards and not having them preset. It's just this fun thing for me to do. All right, it's Temperance reversed. It's Temperance reversed. This is going to take a little bit of digestion right here. What can I do to recognize and overcome this state of life is not fair? Maybe it's to recognize that life isn't supposed to always go my way. That's really what this would be. Living a fully balanced, realized, self-realized state. Maybe this is that contrast that helps me define what it is that I want in my life. I've been talking a lot about this to my clients, the idea that whenever you find yourself in a negative situation, when you lose, you're obviously learning something from it. Because a child wouldn't get that. A child would just know that they lost the game or that life was unfair. But whenever you sort of spin that around to say, how can I get out of that victimization stuff, those two guys being turned away in this RWS system of this thing, it's, hey man, now is my opportunity to learn from something, to realize what I don't want. That's where my cognitive mind has to go whenever I find myself saying, man, this sucks, man. That's it. That's it. This was the 3 ego states spread. I hope you enjoyed it. Simon, everything you do, I really enjoy. Thank you for putting out quality stuff on your channel, and I'll catch up with you in the comments below.